seat. Man, I wish my mom were here. Mark and Amy, thank you so much. Ambassador Erdan, who's doing a phenomenal job here, making our voice heard. And when he speaks, you literally hear his voice. We're good friends in government, in the cabinet. Whenever he spoke, even whispered, everyone was silent. I want to wish you Asaf best success. And I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you and tell you how much it means for me as Prime Minister of Israel to know that all of you on Zoom and here and across the states, you have our backs. You have our back, and it just means a lot because we're, as I described today, we're working darn hard in a very tough area to build an optimistic, energetic, can-do country, and knowing that each and every one of you is working always to strengthen us means so much. I bring with me a new spirit from Jerusalem, the eternal capital. It's a spirit of goodwill. It's a spirit of working together. This government, which was an accident that turned into a purpose, I hadn't planned in a million years to be in a government with the folks I'm in. And I'd never thought it would work, let alone be the prime minister. I mean, to begin with, Israelis aren't an easy group, right? But we were really, I want to share with you the story of the government because it's very relevant in a moment also for our relationship. So we were in 4 consecutive elections. The air was poisonous. Poisonous. And there was a sense of helplessness in the air. People were despaired. Like, what's the point going and putting a ballot for the 5th time if you're just going to get the same deadlock? And I remember it was Shabbat morning where I had to make a decision because I was the guy in the middle. I'm good at negotiations, taking a small number and leverage. But my point was that I collected my kids and my wife in the kitchen, and I said, listen, Abba is about to do something really unpopular. Lots of people are going to call Abba very bad names, but I want you to know why I'm doing it. Because I care for our country. And if we don't do this, if we don't sit together, people with profoundly different ideas about everything pretty much, if we don't sit together, this thing's going to tear apart. And we do have a legacy. The Jewish people, we've got this bug that haunts us of division. We lost our first Jewish home to division between Israel and Judea. By the way, do you folks know what was the specific reason they separated? Anyone know? What was the igniter? It was taxes. Yeah. Solomon's son, Rehoboam, decided to raise taxes. Bad idea. So we lost 80% of the Jewish people. All of us are descendants only of Judea and Benjamin, right? And then we regrouped, formed another house, another home, another Jewish state. The first one survived 80 years, the first temple, 80 years. King David and Solomon, about 80 years. The second temple, or the second commonwealth of the Jewish people, survived as a sovereign and united country about 73 years during the Maccabees. And then again, internal strife tore us apart. So the Jewish people have never exceeded 80 years in Eretz Israel as a sovereign united state. We're now 73 years old. Man, this time, we're not going to let it fall apart. We're not going to let it fall apart. That's why I took this step. But I'll tell you something. And because I do harbor my opinions. It's amazing. It's working. The people that sometimes they demonized me and sometimes vice versa, I demonized them, when we sit together and we have to tackle day in, day out real life problems. We're not talking about kumbaya in some seminar. We've got to run a country. We've got to get a budget done. We've got to open up import to reduce prices. We've got to take care of COVID, bring a booster, not bring a booster. There's stuff to be done. Well, they love the country not an iota less than I do. The right doesn't have a monopoly on patriotism. The left does not have a monopoly on human rights or the desire for peace. We all love Israel. We all share a deep passion to build a better future. And when you have goodwill, that's all you need. Goodwill and a bit of trust, it can work, and it is working. So this is indeed the most diverse government in Israel's history, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful, and I'm determined to make it work. One of the big missions of this generation, of mine as Prime Minister of Israel, is our future. The future of Israel and the Jews. Now, it's the first time, almost 3,000 years, that the biggest concentration of Jews is again the state of Israel. Even during Second Temple, all the Jews, or most of them, were in America, in Babylon. That was America of then. Yeah, you know, modern. Could get good cereal. And I remember my mom, after making Aliyah, well, she always told us, back in the 70s, they didn't have cereal in Israel, and they didn't have one-time diapers. That was a disaster. So now it's the first time, just a few years ago, we, again, after thousands of years, the biggest single concentration of Jews in the world is the state of Israel. And that also means that there's going to be a need to rethink our relationship. Because, you know, since the inception of Israel, and actually it predates the inception of Israel, Israel has been the project of the Jewish people. But we're doing okay. We're strong, economy's growing, great high tech. Now we have to redesign our relationship. For me, it's really natural. I grew up in this relationship. You know, my dad, may rest in peace, Jim Bennett, tell you a story. The first time, so Six-Day War, May of 67, my dad and mom, two secular Jews in San Francisco, studied at Berkeley. You can imagine where they, my dad, by the way, was arrested on a demonstration, on a sit-in. You know what a sit-in is? In a San Francisco hotel that would not hire black people, and he was arrested, and I'm darn proud of him for that. So the sixth in May, Nasser closes the Straits of Tehran, and my mom and dad, who had no connection to this remote state with camels or whatever, they became obsessed. What will happen to the Jewish state? And right after the war, they got on the first plane, made Aliyah to Israel. The first time Abba comes to a shul, so they say, "Ech korim lecha?" And he says, "Jim." and they say, lo, 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 Hashem bi'ivrit. So he says, oh, Yaakov, ben shloshim. So he had absolutely no connection. It's going to take a bit of time for... And for me, we're one. We're one. When a Jew in Pennsylvania gets hurt, I hurt. When a Jew in France gets hurt, we feel the pain because we're one. But now's the point in time where we can bring our relationship and the very meaning of what we are to the next level, the next step in Zionism. Because Zionism, modern day Zionism, was originally formed to create a safe haven for Jews, right? Dreyfus, Herzl, safe haven. A shelter. That was the raison d'etre of Israel, a safe shelter. But now we're about 130 years in since the beginning of modern day Zionism. Is that a good enough purpose, mission statement? It's important. But, you know, there's some things that are more inspirational than shelters. Shelter is the basis, but we have a purpose. And the purpose is to shine light. That's what we're about. That's what the Jewish people are about. And today at the UN, I shared my fundamental view of what Israel is about, or ought to be, a lighthouse in a stormy sea. A lighthouse has strong foundations. Without that, it won't be there. So we have a strong IDF, strong economy, high-tech, cyber, Mossad, you name it. But that's only the first step. We are about doing good. And I think if we want to inspire the next generation, the younger kids, we have to together work on it. And I say together because it's not that I'm coming here with an accurate formula. We've got to work this out together. And if there's one thing I want to import from American Jewry to Israel, it's the ability to listen. It's the ability to not define people and put them in a box. Right? In Israel, so you have Chiloni, secular. You have Dati, Kippa Sruga, knitted yarmulke. You have black, Haredi. You have knitted black, actually, now. You've got these shades, right? The specific, but if you're just 3 centimeters off, I can't, no, not in my shul, no. And here, you're just a Jew, and you're welcome. Whether you're Haredi, Reform, Orthodox, modern Orthodox, you are welcome. And that's something that we need to import the fact that we embrace everyone. And that's the dialogue that we're opening up. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. We're not. But we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to listen to each other. At the same time, while we're doing all of this, we are in the toughest neighborhood in the world. Sometimes I meet leaders of other countries. They don't get it. They don't get it, right? When I grew up, spent a couple of years in Teaneck, New Jersey, so you don't wake up in the morning and a few kilometers someone wants to shoot a rocket at your home. In Israel, if these were the borders of Israel, you've got Hezbollah on our border, wants to destroy us. You've got Iranian militias on the other border. You've got Hamas. You've got Islamic Jihad. For heaven's sakes, we still have ISIS in the Sinai. That was supposed to be gone with in the Sinai. So all of them are quite literally on our border. And that's why we need to remain strong. And that's what we're doing. We just are putting through now a huge budget increase in our security. We've got a lot of work to do. We will prevail. Some people are talking about Iran as a done deal. No, it's not a done deal. We're not going to give up, and we will prevent them from acquiring a nuclear weapon. We're working hard with our great friend, the United States of America, but we still have a very clear compass that we were taught long ago, im ein anili mili. At the end of the day, while we invite and are bringing in more and more partners in the region, we will not outsource our security to anyone, even to our best friends. It's up to us. No one's going to stop us. We need to do what we need to do, and we are doing what we need to do. The latest vote in Congress was telling. I was very happy with the great result, 420 to 9. I want to make a point, though. It's not only about the fact that Iron Dome is defensive. It's broader than that. Look. I was here 20 years ago with all of you. I lived in Manhattan during 9/11. I saw one of I had been at my office in my high-tech firm at 56 on 6th. And they said the building fell, and you remember all the phones. So I couldn't believe it. I walked down, and I looked, and I saw only one building on fire. I could not believe it. Went back to my company, said to everyone, get out of here, go north. You remember? Everyone was walking north that day. And the lesson that the world learned is that when there's swamps of terror, you can't ignore it. Because if you ignore it, those mosquitoes will come to hunt you. The flip side is you don't want to get into a 20-year quagmire. So you're sort of between a rock and a hard place. And in that sense, indeed, what President Biden says again and again, if there weren't in Israel, we ought to have invented one, it's right on, because that's exactly the point. We are 9 million boots on the ground. We are fighting. We are day in, day out in touch with those terrorists. We're gaining intelligence, methodologies. And we're fending them without ever asking America to send even one troop, and we never will. We are not the problem. We're the solution. Smack in the middle of the toughest region in the world, we're fighting the problem and solving it. Not solving, but managing it. We're not going anywhere. We're here to stay there. And that's why it's not only about Iron Dome. The very essence of us here means the terror is at bay to a degree. So the very essence of Israel acting where it is defends people across the world. And I can tell you right now that not a week and a half go by without us, because we're in friction with these terror organizations, we save lives. I can't share the specifics, but we'll call up someone in some country and say, listen, right now on this street, this building, go up to 7th floor, in your country, you're going to find a terror squad, go get them. And we do this again and again. We're saving lives because we're there. You can't run away from terror. And finally, to merge the two things, we talked about light and we talked about security. But in a sense, you know, tomorrow's Simchat Torah. One of the things that always strikes me about our Torah is it's Torat Chaim. Judaism is about life, but real life, right? The epitome in Judaism is not to go to some remote mountain and isolate yourself. No, that's considered a vice. It's bad. The epitome of Judaism is facing reality and bringing your values into real life friction. And think about it. How easy is it to be in Brussels and to theorize about how you ought to defend yourself against terrorists? But we're doing it. And we're pioneering how do you fight against asymmetric war? What do you do when they embed a missile launcher into a home? What is the morality? I'll tell you what's not. Not doing anything just because they embedded a missile launcher is immoral. You got to fight back. But how? So Israel today represents values in a very difficult situation. Not in the ivory towers that are disconnected from reality. And we're figuring out, those 9 million people out there that I'm so humbled to lead, day in, day out, we're showing the world how to be a moral, but a real moral country facing the worst enemies of the world, yet thriving and optimistic and energetic and doing good and doing well. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for your ongoing support. And I want to invite you to the ongoing and open dialogue. We're going to try and listen. I'll tell you the last story. Because when I came and founded my high-tech company, I'm Israeli. And the company was Israeli-American, and it's sort of two different cultures. It took a while. So I was on a phone call. You remember they had cell phones you could do like this. I was on a phone call, and the guy who was VP strategy, an American guy called Brian Durman. So he comes into the room, and I'm on the call, and I say, and he says, Naf, I don't know what that means. So it takes time. I'll just give you one or two pieces of advice, which you probably know. Israel has unique physics. In Israel, if an elevator door opens, everyone can enter before people leave. It actually works. And in Israel, here's the most important tip. It is profoundly impolite to let the other person finish his sentence. Folks, I want to thank you. Toda rabba. I love you on behalf of the people of Israel. Toda rabba.